All right, thanks for joining. My name's John. I'm a software engineer with about 10 years of experience. Let's build some stuff. Today we are working on IRL TCG game tools. And the first section I'm going to explain what that is, and hopefully we'll get into some code today. In front of us is the Reddit for IRL TCG, recently created by yours truly. Only has 2 members. Please go check it out. You can actively participate in game card creation by interacting with these posts. These posts have a regular form. There is a post with an image, and then you can comment basically. And there are no images in the comments. And with the post, you can provide some post text if you want. There's flair for different card types, including items, battlers, environments, and event cards. I don't think I've uploaded any event cards, but the flair exists. And you can give it sort of like a crazy title if you want. It doesn't need to be literal. So this is building on Golem Game. And I'll get to what Golem Game is momentarily. If you've seen my YouTube channel, you may have seen that. ChatGPT will consume all of the content, including the comments, and produce game cards based on all of that content. So your participation in the comments is totally valuable. The card does not need to be what the original poster thinks it was. And in fact, it's part of the fun is with the Golem Game, it's drawings, right? So the difference is here, they're photos in real life, and that solves a pain point with the Golem Game. There's a couple pain points with this. One is, let's say that you'd like to play the Golem Game. You need to have like utensils and things to draw. So I recently did this to success at Caplicon. Every time I've played this game, people have had fun with it, but you need to have sort of certain preparations. And so one of the pain points at Caplicon was that we had a marker board and like the markers were starting to run out, right? So you had to kind of like really press to draw. We got by, but it's not the first time I've been faced with a pain point like this. Sometimes people just don't want to draw. They might be embarrassed or something like that. So one of the ways to get by this is with photos. Another way to get by it is doubling the telephone. So part of the fun of Golem Game is that it's a bit like telephone mixed with Pokemon. You draw this picture, then other participants who are not involved in the battle, so your monster will be battling another monster. So Sarah and I might have a match. I draw something, she draws something, and there are independent third parties who are neither Sarah nor I. So there might be 5 people playing, you would have 3 third parties. Each of them gives a sentence to ChatGPT about what they think this picture is, and that is how ChatGPT calculates the stats and so forth. So with these photos, that's one way you can get around the drawing. Then we're still describing these photos. The other way you can get around the drawing is you can prompt to draw. So I can use something like Leonardo or Midjourney, where I tell Leonardo one thing, Leonardo creates an image, and then others describe that image. So it's sort of an indirect telephone game. It's like a telephone game that has to go through an image layer, if that makes sense. So those are 2 ways to solve the problem of inability to draw. One is you can draw by prompting or draw indirectly, basically. And another is you can take pictures. You could do this at game time, or you can do this ahead of time. And so when you take this ahead of time strategy, that's where it becomes somewhat of a different game, basically. And now you're in the IRL TCG world. So that's how it evolves from Golem Game into this new thing. You obviously also have the twist where these are pictures of real things, but circling back to what I said earlier, the point is not to be overly literal. So futuristic horse with carriage. And so part of the fun here is the telephone game effect, where ChatGPT will be reading this. It'll be reading the text, and it won't have access to the image. And so it creates this like humorous effect where you'll get these stats and these abilities like you would have on a Pokemon card or a Yu-Gi-Oh card or a Magic the Gathering card. And it can be sort of like, it might be quite related to the picture, or it might be like grossly irrelevant to the picture. And that's pretty fun too. A recent example at Caplicon is that someone drew a sort of stick figure, like a knight with a sword and shield. And the shield was a kite shield. And one of the independent observers described it as a, quote, kite. And ChatGPT got confused and didn't understand that it was a kite shield and thought that this was a warrior with a like powerful magic kite. And then that's funny because ChatGPT will then go on to describe the fight itself. And it's sort of grossly decoupled from the intent of the artist. So that's where this telephone game effect comes from, and I think it's pretty fun. Okay, so that gives you some background on how we got to here. What are we coding? What we're coding, I'm going to try to use the Reddit API if I can. I might have to scrape, but we're going to loop through here and collect the card data. Ideally, I can use the API itself. I don't want to scrape if I don't need to. So let's create a repository. It's going to be located here. You can see all the links in the YouTube video description. So let's create this now. And you're really seeing me start from scratch here, and that's all intentional. No template. We're going to call it IRL TCG tools description. Game tools for the IRL TCG game. By the way, there's also a related Discord. You can get to this not only through the URL directly, you can also go to Latterly, where I teach people to code, scroll down to the Discord at the bottom, and there's a channel for the TCG. This will be public. We can start with a README, sure, get ignore. We'll go for Node. We might not end up using Node, but let's see. MIT open source. Most of the stuff I do is open source. Great, and it created it at this intended URL. So here we are. This is the initial commit. GitHub wants me to do 2FA. I already have 2FA enabled. So I don't know why it's giving me that. I'll check that out after the stream. Jordan says hello. How's it going, Jordan? Nerf Scuttler on Twitch. What's up? What's up? Thanks for being here. So I'm going to grab this. The usual thing that I would do, so we have VS Code over here. Git clone, paste it. The usual thing that I would do would be to reach for Blitz. Blitz is a Next.js framework. So we can do this. This is sort of the safe option. And a stack that I like to use is this together with Supabase for a database. One of the questions I need to ask is, what is the feature set that I want here? What do I actually want to do? So let's go over here to the issues and start creating features. I do want this to be a bit like a Pokedex, but there might be differences in the short-term, long-term implementation. The most beneficial thing that could happen right now in the short term is the ability to generate a random deck. So let's say that you and I would like to play a game. What we would have to do today is we would have to get a die roller. Let's go over to Google. Roll, how many cards are even going to be in our decks? We'll start with that. We could pick an arbitrary number. I think for Yu-Gi-Oh it's like 40 or I don't actually know the rules anymore. It's been a while. I think it's a minimum of 40, and I don't know if there's a maximum. But I could just say roll 1d100. That seems like sus. Why is it rolling a d6? Is it ever going to actually go over 6? Yeah. So let's not trust this thing. Okay. So here's a D100. Let's see. I wonder if ChatGPT can roll a D100. The code interpreter is going to do it. Let's go! So ChatGPT actually beat Google on this. 1D100 means one roll of a 100-sided die, if you're not familiar. So this is like an RNG, random number generation technique that's often used in RPG and strategy games and similar games. And this is a element of this game. So the important thing is that you and I create random decks. It's not particularly important if we use 1D100 syntax or anything like that. But that's just sort of like where my mind goes for random number generation. You could also just use like the Python random function, right? Like a random number between 1 and 100. That would effectively be the same as a 1D100. So, yeah, for now, this seems like a fine thing to do. I would want a minimum number of cards. I don't know. Minimum number of cards for Magic the Gathering. Let's just look at these big 3 card games. So, minimum for Magic is 60. 40 for Yu-Gi-Oh! And 60. So figure out deck size rule. 40 to 60 aligns with Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. 1D100 looks good to me, but minimum at 40. So really, that would be what? That would be 40 plus 1D60 is how you would do that. I guess it'd be 39 plus. But we'll leave it at 40. 40 plus 1d60. In theory, you will never have a 40 card deck. It will be minimum 41. And you could go, so that's like 4. Yeah. So I like this idea where we sort of randomize everything. What's going on here? What's up, Crackerjack? We are making a game. So deck size rule. So this would be the first thing that the tools can do is say, hey, here are your decks, and these are the cards in them. So today, let's say I ended up with 42. Now I'll have to go through these and like pick 42 somehow. How do we even randomly do that? One thing you can do is you can get the ID, like I can kind of scroll around. Ooh, I'm random. Scroll down, scroll up. Stop when you say when, boom, and do that 42 times. That's like so dumb, right? What would be better is if I could number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I could roll the die over 42 times that would still be time consuming to do manually. That's where machines come in. A machine can, in the blink of an eye, pick 42 random cards. So that would be sort of the that would be the first thing that is valuable and time saving that this tool could do, is it could generate the decks. And I think that might be a good scope for today. But before we get into the code, let's try and come up with some other things that it could do. So that would be the minimum, is that it helps you generate the decks. And then I would manually go over to ChatGPT and we would do the thing where I'm like, hey, Bill got this card and played that card. So what happens next? What could I put into the tool itself? In the long run, you just never go to chatgpt.openai.com. You just go to the tool and it has the GPT API in the background. That could be cool. So I might want even a different model. Let's see if Claude can work with this. Let's do sort of a fake game. Why would I want Claude? The answer is, and so as a developer, the other thing to do here is figure out model to use. Models to use. Assuming ChatGPT, or assuming GPT-4 code compiler by default, but others could work too. Okay. And priming prompts. For the LLM. This would be another thing that's valuable in the tool, is to have these priming prompts. That would go something like this. Let's try to do this now. We are playing a card game called IRL TCG. In this game, players take turns playing cards in order to achieve their own objectives in the minimum number of turns. So there's different ways to play this, but this is sort of the most naive implementation, is like whoever you draw a random objective. Actually, the most naive way is that it's not a random objective. There's the single objective that comes from the Golem game, which is you imagine that you're all in a tournament, like a gladiator tournament, and there can only be one winner. So you don't even draw a random objective. There's a fixed objective. That's the most naive way to play it. In IRL TCG, there are objective cards, so different people can receive different objectives. And it could be whoever achieves their own objective first. You can also do, in a number of turns, you get points for achieving objectives, like who gets the most points in a certain number of turns. Various options. Let's keep it simple for the prompt. We are playing a card game called IRL TCG. In this game, players take turns playing cards in order to achieve their own objectives in the minimum number of turns. So we'll keep it simple and we'll say whoever achieves, did I spell achieves right? I think so. Their objective first wins. Okay? This is a naive prompt. So these are kind of like game modes. Oh, I have 2 chat GPTs open. Oops. By the way, y'all can totally go to this Reddit right now and contribute cards or like post new pictures or comment on the existing ones. Okay. Whoever achieves their objective first wins. The cards will be described to you simply using a block of text. It is up. We are playing a game called IRL TCG. You are the Oracle. Right. You are the Oracle, and you will describe how the card impacts the game world. You do not need to take the card at face value. Let's see how this works. What do I want to track? I guess if we're going to go with the initial objective, all players have drawn the same objective card. They are in a tournament. Let's see, all 3 players. We're going to say there are 3 players. Jim, Sarah, and John. They're in a tournament and their battlers will try to win. Keep track of battler health points. Anything else? I think pretty much that's it for now. All right, so we'll put this here, trying. Jim, Sarah, and John in that order. Jim will let me know when you are ready to hear. Let me know when you are ready to receive the description of the first player of the first card from the first player. Bam, and it is ready. So we could write code that would automate all of this, but I don't want to automate the wrong thing. That's why we're sort of doing a play test before we put it into code. Does that make sense? Ready to receive the description of the first card played by Jim. So he will play his battler. Jim's first card is the battler. This is funny, by the way, because the description didn't specify who the serious dog is out of these two. These are my dogs, by the way. And it got them backwards. So Copper is the red coat, Akira is the black coat, and Akira is a very serious dog, and Copper is a goofball. And the GPT assigned it backwards. So that's pretty funny. That's sort of a microcosm of this telephone game effect, where every time we communicate something, we communicate it imperfectly. And so GPT will create its own imagined world of what's actually going on. 50 each. Let's go. I'm ready for the next card. So I guess I should specify who is playing the next card. Let's just find the next battler here. Is this oh, Zenboy's a battler. I thought this was going to be, you know what, that's fine. I thought this was going to be an item, but it is in fact a battler. Let's ask, oh man, we need to have, so there's something like multi-role cards. Let me show you this. The sky is another one. Is the sky up here? Well, this is another one. Futuristic Horse with Carriage is a multi-role card. It could be a battler if it's sort of like interpreted as a horse, but we know that cars like don't, even some cars drive around on their own, right? Like maybe a Tesla that's in AI mode. So potentially, depending on context, this could be a battler, but it could also be an item. A person could be driving it. So unfortunately, the way Reddit Flare works is, unless I'm mistaken, let me know in the comment. One post gets one post flare. So the flare doesn't really accommodate the multi-role concept. That's what's going to have to be communicated through the description and the comments. And so we can say, chat, is this an item or a battler or possibly multi-role? Okay. Here, I'm happy to let Claude make the determination of which role it takes on, but I can't have it choosing item out of the gate, because the first thing players should do is play their battlers. So, how do we address this from a gaming standpoint? So we could just like, it's always a battler if you play it in the first round. That seems to be a fair rule. The other thing we could do is you cannot play multi-role cards in the first round. No, you started it. What is the stream about? We're making a game. IRL TCG, here's the Reddit URL. So all of these posts get turned into like Magic the Gathering cards, kind of. It's like the easiest way to explain it anyway. Yeah, and check out the Reddit, and you can totally go upvote, downvote, post your own thing. New channel, just started it a day or two ago. So here, I think it's at least worth noting, like there should be an issue to document game rules, basically. One is if, or like, can a player play a multi-role battler as their first card? And I think the answer is yes. Let's say yes. Cool. So in that case, we're scrolling down and we just said we'll let people pick whatever's in order. So this would be the next one, futuristic horse with carriage. So there's Jim, Sarah, and John. So Sarah plays the futuristic horse with carriage card. Descriptions include, and you see how I'm typing this out, and that a program could basically make the prompt like immediately. So here Claude is giving it health points just in time. And I think it's totally fine to play the game this way. The other thing that we could do is have these ahead of time saved in a database. So things like health points, do we want them saved in the database, or do we just want to save the descriptions and always have the stats computed just in time? I think what I would like to do is allow for both. So I think there will be sort of a canonical, we can call it a canonical game mode, where you use the sort of like ahead of time saved stats. And then I think that I don't want to say the other version is non-canonical, because that makes it sound like unofficial or worse. I think the other mode of play would be like a narrative mode of play or a just-in-time mode of play. What would you say? How can we better describe it to make it sound like equally cool? Because it really is equally cool to have these unique stories that are sort of like Snowflake, everyone is different, like every story is unique, because these LLM models put some noise into the prompt response generation, right? And we love that. That's one of the things that makes it useful for game, like making game worlds. So there's sort of like these non-reproducible or unique. There's these unique games. And then there's these reproducible canonical games, which might be better for like league play. I don't even know if that's true, because there's like YouTube channels where people do like RPGs, and that's fun too. It's just sort of a different game, right? We could also call them like fast mode and slow mode, maybe. So in the slow mode, you're recalculating stats. two main modes, canonical versus narrative. Canonical versus narrative. Let me know what you think in the chat. I feel like that's the most balanced distinction. So canonical uses these ahead of time computed card stats, and narrative uses only the card title, description, and comments. The actual stats, abilities, etc. are determined just in time. And the cool thing about narrative is that it can depend on context, right? So like in an RPG, I might have a card that says like kitchen knife. Or I might have a card that says futuristic horse with carriage. And it has these pre-computed stats. But in a actual narrative, the way that I encounter this could be rather different, right? Is it in motion? Is it at rest? What make and model? Is it an actual horse with carriage? Is it in the future from now, you know, something else? Okay. So let's do this last card. Here's a battle. Here's a battler, the Kickball King. Oh gosh. This is a real picture of me playing kickball. Let's go. Lacking in upper body strength. Wow. Okay, Claude. Let's see if I use Claude again. I'm ready to continue interpreting the next cards played to build out the unfolding battle and strategy for each team. Great. Now I could say like, who goes next? Maybe it's going to interpret like speed differences or something like that. Yeah, let's do that. What MacBook is this? So this is the M2 Air. I love this one. So right now we're kind of doing the narrative mode of play, if you will. I would guess Sarah's futuristic horse would act first. It picked right, didn't it? So what does Sarah play? This is Skeeter Beater. Let's just go from the top down. Common mugwort. Sarah plays the card let's say, how does this card impact the story, influence the battle? Let's just not say anything. Let's just leave it like this and see what happens. Here's how I would interpret playing the common mugwort card. As this seems to be a healing herb rather than a battler. Oh, you know what? I should specify that it is an item. That's true. I would say Sarah has gained the ability to use common mugwort to restore health points to her futuristic horse or provide positive effects like removing status conditions, curing poison, etc. We love to see it. Provides ongoing value to Sarah as a form of apothecary medicine. Slay. Who goes next? This should be included in the prompt, by the way. I'm already seeing that, by the way, please always tell me who to play next. Please always tell me what to, or like who has the next turn. Oh, you already did tell me, didn't you? I'm so sorry. Oh no, actually you didn't. You just said who was the fastest. Gems, Copper, and Akira. They play the money bank. Oh. It has no other description. Should we flag that as like a problematic card if it doesn't have a description, or is that okay? Buy power-ups, heal them, upgrade their abilities. Yep. Okay, so it's not open yet. I've played the mysterious package, but it's not open yet. Okay, okay. Did it tell me who to go next? I'm waiting to see the battle happen. Has no other description. Introduced a legendary high fantasy grocery store into the market, into the battle environment. Let's go. And actually, Jim's money would seem to interact with this, right? So one thing I'm noticing about Claude, and we don't know if GPT and others will behave the same way, but Claude continues to intake context, but it's not narrating any battle change. Ozidbek, thanks for being here. What are we doing? We are working on IRL TCG. Here's the Reddit. Please check it out. You can contribute to making game cards, trading card game, TCG, by upvoting, commenting, or posting your own real-life photos that are related to either environmental cards, item cards. Oh, this didn't get flare. This is a possible multi-roll. Could it be an event or a spell or an environment? I think that's why I didn't give it flare, because it could be any of the above. Let's play this card next. I'll assume Jim gets to choose how to leverage the multi-roll potential. Actually, Jim should not choose how to leverage the multi-roll. You, as the Oracle, should describe which role it takes as he played it now. Maybe that sentence didn't make sense. He played the card, and you as the Oracle must interpret the actual effect of the card, including the role it has taken. Do you know what the quantitative literacy is? I don't know. Schwan, thanks for the likes. When Jim plays the rays of light in the parting clouds, I see epic sunlight bursting through as a powerful environmental effect. The battle is now engulfed in radiant sunlight, provides ongoing advantages to Jim's plant-based cards. He doesn't have any plant-based cards, but cool. As the Oracle, I will commit to taking multi-roll cards at face value and deciding their actual impacts. So it's doing very well here. What I want to know is, can I share... So with GPT, right, I can share a game chat. I don't see that happening here, though. So next up is John. John is going to play Trash Bird. Nope, not going to play a Battler. One Battler at a time. Will I play another environmental card? Let's say I do this one. I'm just making this up, right? So players should have some number of cards in their hands. Let's see. That needs to be documented as well. Random deck generation, and actually random game generation, including the number of cards in hand at game start. So for the rules, one rule is players draw one card per turn. Can be modified by effects, and play one card per turn. Players draw one card per turn and play one card per turn. There are no other, like, oh, let's see. There are no other important rules, and these can be modified by effects. What about like combos and interrupts? Need to figure this out with the Oracle. I think a player can play as many cards as they want after the first after the first turn. First turn is only playing battlers. If an oracle ends counter spelling, it's done for the turn from the silenced player. Okay, so these need to be added into the prompt basically. So I can play something and you can counter me, and then the oracle determines if it worked or not. If the oracle says it worked, great. Like maybe we can sort of chain and keep going. But if the oracle says like that didn't work, then I'm done countering you. Other players could still counter me potentially, but I'm done countering you. Okay. John plays lobster shoes. Let's say in narrative mode, players can like unanimously add ad hoc prompts, accumulate rerolls, or do other things. So that will be in the narrative mode. That's going to be my current mechanism to address what seems to be like LLM stalling, like the battle's not going anywhere. I don't know how I would address this in the canonical mode. I have to think about that. I could have some just like automated scripts for just like automated prompts, and I could just pick one of those. Maybe that would work. Okay. Here's lobster shoes. I'm Nico Beats. I have no idea what you're talking about, but so interesting. We're trying to make like a card game like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or something like that. At first glance, the card description about Dr. Jordan Peterson seems random and out of place. I'd say lobster shoes provide some kind of mystical debate philosophy related. Yes! For John's Kickball King specifically, he could surprise enemies by suddenly debating complex topics. Bro, I'm done. I'm done. This is how you know you have a winning game on your hands, right? So yeah, what needs to happen is like every round, the characters need to be doing things based on these cards. So it's not like, okay, every round or every turn. Every round or every turn, the Oracle needs to describe what the characters do. A turn represents an increment of time. The Oracle should also be... I need to pop my back. The Oracle should also be telling the player, or should be telling the players the turn order each round. It can change. As the Oracle, I should be doing a better job narrating what is actively happening at each turn. Okay, what card does Sarah play for her turn? Let's see. Let's say 1d20. So 10. So we'll go from 10 from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Skeeter Beater. Oh gosh. Sarah plays the item card described as Slay in Style. Got it. Here's my narration for her turn. Sarah equips her futuristic horse with the Skeeter Beater weapon. However, it requires battery power. Charging it up to fire next turn. Ooh, look at that. Jim, Copper, and Akira's turn. I don't know. Yeah, this one. This is an environmental item card. Coral tree native to Latin America. This modifies the overall environment rather than equipping a battler directly. Springs up in the middle of the battlefield, its thorny branches filling the air with an exotic floral scent. This is good. This is good. I'm looking for actual attacks, but I guess the players haven't wanted to attack yet. That's okay. John plays the It Gives You Wings item card, described as... Oh, it has no other description. And this is great. You can see that telephone game effect that I referred to happening. So he thinks that the kickball king actually can fly now. It's a picture of a Red Bull, right? That's funny, right? Okay, to me that's funny. This concludes round 2. I will now reevaluate turn order. Got a speed boost from the wings. There you go. How did the futuristic horse get damaged? Did I mess that up? Finishes its headbutt against Kickball King, dealing moderate damage. Right. Oh, he attacks the futuristic horse from above. Okay, that's what I missed. Yo, Kickball King in the house. What card does Sarah play in response on her turn? I think she plays the Zen Boy. Sarah plays the Zen Boy. Multi-role item and battler card. Note that only one battler at a time can be active. Yeah, how do we handle this situation? So I already have a battler. Why am I playing another battler? Either this should be like illegal, and then I should only have one battler in my whole deck of 50 cards. That seems like a bad idea. The other option is that we can play a bunch of battlers. Maybe that should be the case. And the other is that we can only have one at a time. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's different cases where both would be allowable. I'll just say this. And then the oracle can determine whether this is another battler joining. Whether this is another battler joining the fray or what happens. A spiritual Dragon Ball-esque figure who can buff allies or be thrown as a ranged projectile. Zimboy appears before the futuristic horse, chanting Namahamaste. Okay, Jim. I like how Claude keeps like asking, like, "Am I doing it right now? Am I doing it right?" It's adorbs. I'm like out of cards, man. Fish sticks. I think I'm going to play no more cards, and we're just going to ask the battle to continue. The futuristic horse's horn impales him. When did the horse get a horn? Ouch. All right, good job, Sarah. Okay, so this would be an example of narrative play. And I think that's going to do it for today. We've accumulated some rules. And I think we can see where the value would be from automating these tools, but no time to code them yet today. And that's all the time we have for the stream. Thanks for being here. Next time, we'll actually start writing some code. I think we're going to start with building the decks so that I'm not scrolling through like picking what cards. So this random deck generation, I think this is going to be the main thing that we code next time, and maybe refine the prompt a bit. And I think the overall development strategy here is we start with narrative play because we can already do that manually, and we automate the pieces we can. So we might basically keep playing narrative play with tool assistance, and then in the future, maybe it can be sort of fully gamified. And at that point, we could do this more canonical approach. But as we saw, there was no math, basically. Like, it started off strong, giving health points, but then the attacks turned qualitative, which is fine for narrative play, but there were no numbers. Which is really to be expected when it's LLM driven. So in the future, the canonical mode might not use an LLM at all. We might actually write the tool that does the math, right? Because once you have those canonical cards with health and abilities and attack and all of this, then we could be able to just calculate the winner. And so I think that will be the canonical mode. That's the current plan anyway. Thanks for being here. Talk to you later.